Of course, God Bless America sounds like it's the very end. What I would like to highlight is we have two other wonderful speakers. I think as we think about that closing of that 3-day and that attempt by the Secretary of State to take it to the U.S. Supreme Court to end those 3 days, we need to think about, well, who are the people that use those weekend hours? You know, it's not necessarily just the procrastinator. It's folks who actually want to have a family member go with them because of disabilities. It could be that, hey, we're working extremely long hours, and those hours are so essential that right now you might say, oh, there are hundreds of hours that are available to people for early voting, except for what really matters are those hours that work for ordinary folks. And if you don't have good weekend hours, you don't have these kind of longer days, it makes it very difficult for ordinary folks to vote. And so what I'd like to do is kind of move us kind of from the early voting kind of obstacles that we're facing over to the absentee ballots. And so I'd like to introduce you, once again, this reverberation is quite the thing, isn't it? I'd like to introduce you to Camille Wimbush, who's with Project Vote. Camille. And then this is Gena Shelton, and Gena Shelton is with Ohio Voice. And ladies, do you want to take it away?
So hi everybody, we're here to talk about some of the obstacles that are present when people attempt to vote with the vote by mail ballot. This is a replica of the ID envelope, which actually ends up tripping up a lot of voters. And we're here just to highlight some of the important fields that we have to ensure that all the voters are completing in order for their ballot to count. So, at the top, of course, we're going to have to print your name. And the date. And the date of birth. Obviously, people have to have their correct date of birth. It has to match with the database. Sometimes people trip up and put the current date instead of their birth date. And then you have to provide a form of ID. That can either be a social security number, the last four of the social, or it can be a driver's license number. We would suggest that people provide their last four of their social. It just happens to be a more fail-safe option. If you are providing a driver's license or an Ohio driver's license number, sometimes people trip up and provide the wrong number. They may provide the number that's above their photo as opposed to the 6-digit number that starts with 2 letters. And then, of course, you have to sign it and date it. If any of these fields are not completed correctly, the ballot can't be processed. And what's important here is that in previous years, boards of elections who received incomplete ID envelopes would contact voters either by phone or an email or a letter if they didn't have a phone or an email. But what's changed this year is an unprecedented move by the Secretary of State to say that no, boards of elections cannot use these options. They can only use a first-class mail to notify voters of any mistakes. This, of course, can significantly delay the time that it takes for voters to be contacted, and they may not, in fact, have enough time to get in, vote, and correct those ID envelopes in time. If they don't have availability during regular business hours to come down, or perhaps they wait till, say, 5 days before the election to mail that in, these ballots are going to be thrown out. So it's really important that we are educating our voters about the important fields that need to be completed. And given the unprecedented step by the Secretary of State to prohibit boards from doing their jobs and only mail out letters of insufficiency, we're really trying to alert voters that it's in their best interest to call the boards of elections, to actually call and check, did I receive that vote by mail application? Has it been processed? Is there anything wrong with it? Will it be counted? Otherwise, their ballots may be thrown out.
I would just like to follow up and say the last step is to make sure you seal the inside envelope. I know that in 2010, several folks just tucked the flap inside, and that also is an error that will cause your ballot to not be processed. It actually has to be glued down and then put inside the mailing envelope. And this was 40,000 votes were not counted last time because people didn't come correct as errors. So and that was with calling, so it's not a small problem, so we want voters to know. The final thing we want to talk about briefly is we have a hotline that's nonpartisan that folks can call. That's 866-RVOTE. If you have questions anytime, whether it's early vote, election day, questions about provisional ballots, post-election day, please call it. We're not affiliated with a campaign, a party, or a candidate. Our goal is to make sure that every eligible voter has a free, fair, and accessible election. So that number is 866-RVOTE, and we hope that voters know they can contact us with any questions because it is getting confusing, and we want to try to cut through that because election day is in 3 short weeks.